This is Darren Davis, and I'm the Director of ISV Relations for SUSE Linux. And today I'm going to demonstrate our latest version of SUSE Studio, version 1.2. I'm going to go ahead and log in. When you first log into SUSE Studio, you'll notice that you're taken to your appliance's homepage. I'm going to demonstrate building a new appliance for you, so I'm going to go ahead and select Create New Appliance. And I have several different templates that I can choose from. We have a template for JUICE. JUICE is an acronym for Just Enough OS. This is the most minimal stripped down version of SUSE Linux Enterprise. We also have templates for standard server and desktop versions of SUSE Linux Enterprise as well. I'm going to select my architecture. I can either do 32-bit or 64-bit x86. And I'm going to build an Apache web server. And I'm going to go ahead and select Create the Appliance. And this will begin creating the appliance configuration. After that, you're taken to your appliance's home page. Here you can see the name of the appliance, and in the left-hand side of the screen you can see that there's the name of the appliance, its current look and feel. It defaults to building a disk image, we can change that later, based on SLUS 11 Service Pack 1, 64-bit. Our appliance is currently 420 megabytes in size, and we pre-compute a download size of 140 megabytes. This is the number of packages selected. This came from our JUICE template. And then SUSE Studio determines all dependent packages that are needed for this appliance. And you can see that 172 total packages will make up this appliance so far. So the first step is the software selection process. So I'm going to select the software tab. And you can see the repositories that I'm going to be pulling packages from. So we have the standard SUSE Linux Enterprise 11 Service Pack 1 SDK, its updates repository, the standard SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 11 SP1 repository, and its updates repository. There are other repositories that I can add if I need. I also have the ability to upload my own RPMs of software packages to add to the appliance. Those RPM packages have dependency information. They will pull in the necessary pieces of SUSE Linux Enterprise Server needed to build up this appliance. So you can see the current selected packages that I have. If I want to know what one is, say this one, I can select kernel default, and you get this detail of what this package is, what repository it came from, its current version, the group information, the size of the package, its license, and then just the description of the package. We do have a ban button, so as I'm building up this appliance, there may be a package that I don't want to be automatically pulled in. Say, for example, I have my own Java version. If I don't want the Java version that's included with SUSE Linux Enterprise, I can ban that package, and then I know for sure that it won't be pulled in as a dependency during the dependency selection process. So I can go ahead and close that out. The next big step is selecting the packages. We do actually have this section called Your Appliance, where we can get the detail about the appliance that we're building. Again, 172 packages to be installed, and so we can go ahead and look at that. And this will show us all the packages that are currently going to be included in our appliance. We have a button for adding or removing a package. Two different check marks. A black check mark is a package that was added through our template or through one that we've selected. Anything with this lighter gray check mark is a package that is going to be pulled in as a dependency. We can get the package name, and again we can select that if we want the details of it. The version number, its size, again, what repository it's coming from. And then we also have this popularity field. This shows us how popular this package is in comparison to other packages in our SUSE Studio instance. So if I go back to the software selection, you can see here is all available packages. I could browse through this. That's a large number of packages. We also have these patterns. So we have patterns for well-known configurations. Say you were building a file server or a LAMP stack, you could pick the pattern for it. That would make it much easier in building up an appliance. I'm going to go ahead and select the packages I specifically need for this appliance though. So I'm going to build an Apache server, so I know that's a server's package. There's the Apache 2 package, and I'm going to go ahead and add it. Black check mark, and you can see that through the automatic software dependency resolution that he pulled in 5 packages. And these are the 5 packages that he pulled in. This isn't the only way to select packages. You can search for them. Say I need the PHP Apache mod. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and add it. Automatic dependency resolution, and again we can see that it pulled in not only the Apache mod as well as the standard PHP programming language. So that's the software selection process. You can use the software groups to locate software, or you can search for it and add it to your appliance. Those packages get added to the selected software list. After you have selected the software, you can now configure the appliance. So under the Configuration tab, first off, we have some general configuration. This is where you can set your default locale, your default time zone. So if I wanted to choose to make it local to a particular time zone, I could select that here, or I could leave it as a global universal time code. I can do network configuration. So I can turn off networking, or I can have network configured during the first boot of the appliance, or I can use either Network Manager or DHCP, or I could even manually configure the network if necessary. I'm going to leave it at DHCP. I also have the ability to enable the firewall. I like pointing this out because as you change configuration, you can see that the firewall package is needed, and we didn't include it in our software selection, so I can either add it here by selecting the Add Firewall link, or I could turn off that configuration option. This is where I can configure users and groups. I can add a new user and change its name. Say I need an admin user for administering software. And if I don't want a particular user, I can delete that user. Default password. I can personalize the look and feel of the appliance, so we can add a logo. We also have the ability to upload logos. So if you have your own corporate logo, you can add that. You can upload your own background image, or select one of the ones that we have. And then you get this nice little preview of what the appliance is going to look like. The next configuration is startup. So this is where we can set the default run level. We can add an end user license agreement. The end user license agreement is a very useful feature. It allows you to have an end user license agreement displayed on the first boot of the appliance. And the administrator of the appliance has to accept that end user license agreement before they can use the appliance. Otherwise, we shut the appliance off. So it gives you a nice mechanism of displaying an end user license agreement and accepting it. We can do some server configuration options, such as setting up a database like PostgreSQL or MySQL. So if I did happen to need PostgreSQL in this appliance, I could enable that feature. Again, he's pointing out that I need to add the PostgreSQL package. And this is where I could upload a PostgreSQL file and add a PostgreSQL user. I'm going to go ahead and turn that configuration off. Desktop configuration options. And then we have some appliance configuration options. So this is where you can set the disk and memory requirements. So for a virtual machine, this is where you can set the memory size. You can set the disk size. Say you only need 8 gigabytes. If you are building a disk image, this is where you can set the swap partition size. Say you need a full gigabyte of swap partition. You also have the ability to configure the logical volume manager. So if you need more consistent or direct control over multiple volumes on your appliance, you can use the logical volume manager. We added as a feature in 1.2 the ability to integrate with Novell Sentinel Log Manager. And we've also added the ability to integrate with SUSE Manager. By selecting these, you can add the necessary components to either allow for Sentinel Log Manager or SUSE Manager. And there are other additional options. We can add a live installer. We can create a Zen host mode appliance. By default, SUSE Studio builds a Zen guest. If you need a Zen host appliance, this is how you would enable that. The ability to turn on and off VMware CD-ROM support. And this is where you would enable support for our web management interface for appliances, WebYast. The last configuration option is scripting. So we have various options for scripts. We can have a script run at the end of the build of the appliance. So here you can see typical build time things. And in fact, we use this script to remove temporary files and documentation files. And this is a very good place for you to do the same kind of things, either clean up temporary files or do configuration things as part of the build of the appliance. We also have the ability to run a script whenever the appliance boots. In this case, I can use it to run the Apache control command to make sure my Apache started. I also want to point out we have this if-then logic that actually detects a specific point in time, which is called the first boot. And during the first boot, you can run very specific configuration or installation of software. We also have the ability to run auto-yast as part of the appliance's first boot. Next, we have the Files section. So overlay files allows us to put any particular file anywhere in the file system that we need. I'm going to go ahead and upload a file, this web configuration tarball. And you can see that I've uploaded it. I can click on it to get the details. So the next option is the build option. And so this is where I actually build the appliance. I can select a version of the appliance. I can select its default format, and I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as a hard disk image because I have the ability to select an additional format to the hard disk image. So I'm going to go ahead and select as an additional format the Amazon EC2 image. Then I just select build, and my build is started. Now that my build's complete, I now can do the build for the additional format. So I go ahead and select the build additional, and it will now launch a build of my Amazon EC2 image. And now you can see that my Amazon EC2 image is built. Now that those are completed, we have the View Supportability Report. Some new features that we've added in SUSE Studio 1.2 is the ability to view the configuration for this version of the appliance. So here you can see some version details of this appliance. We also have the ability to clone and freeze an appliance so that you can create a new appliance based on this version and freeze all the software sources. And we also have our standard clone feature. We also have the ability to view MD5 checksums of these files so that you can download successfully. And we also have the ability to export the appliance's Kiwi configuration to use the Kiwi command line tool for building appliances offline. Now that the appliances have finished building, we can actually view the files of our appliance. So this gives us the ability to statically view the appliance file system. Here I can look through and make sure that my index.html file from my configuration tarball got input correctly, and you can see that it did. Of course, we have the ability to download the appliance. The last big feature I want to show is the ability to do a live test drive of the appliance. We can actually test this appliance out, and here you can see that SUSE Studio is connecting to my live test drive. And now you can see my live test drive boot. My appliance is booted. I'm going to accept the end user license agreement, and the appliance will finish its boot process. And I'm taken to my Linux prompt. Now I can just go ahead and log into my appliance. And as you can see, my appliance is up and running. One of the things that I would want to do is to make sure that my Apache processes are running correctly. So I will just do a process status, and you can see that the Apache processes are running. Now that my appliance is up and running, I'm going to want to test the networking to my Apache web server. So we can go to the Networking tab, and we have the ability to enable networking into this appliance. By enabling it, I can now use SSH and SSH into this appliance to test it out. We also have the ability to try out our web app. We port map the standard port 80 to a port on the SUSE Studio server. So by selecting that, I can actually see that my Apache web server is up and running correctly. We also have the ability to use VNC client to connect into this running instance. One of the things that I would really like to point out, though, is we have the ability to track modified files. So SUSE Studio can keep track of all files that have changed on this appliance since we booted it. Here you can see files that were added and modified. For example, if I wanted to look at the clock configuration, I can actually just view it. Or I can go ahead and download any of the files that I need. This is a really useful feature. This allows me to continue working on my appliance and incorporate any file changes I needed. Say, for example, I needed to create a configuration file. I can go ahead and create it under /etc and say that it's my software.config. I can sync those file system changes, and then when I go over to the modified files, it will refresh and you can see that that configuration file has been added to the appliance. After I have configured my appliance and configured all the software that I need on this appliance, when I'm ready to incorporate those changes back into my appliance, I can go into Modified Files, select Add, and have this file added back to my appliance. And it gets added back to the Overlay File section. So if I go back to my Overlay File section, you can see that I now have this new configuration file added to my appliance. This is a very powerful feature that allows you to continue working on your appliance, testing your software remotely through networking, and making sure your configuration and everything is working correctly before you finalize your appliance. Select those modified files, add them back to your configuration, and then the next build version of the appliance will now incorporate those additional files. The last feature that we have is the ability to share appliances in the SUSE gallery. So you can just add a description and details of the appliance, the particular version, and you can share this with other users. One of the features we have in SUSE Studio 1.2 is the ability to manage our appliances in the Amazon EC2 cloud. You can take any one of your built appliances and publish it to Amazon EC2. In order to make this work, you have to enter your Amazon credentials on an Amazon credentials page in SUSE Studio. Here you can see that I already entered my access key and secret access key for my account on Amazon Web Services. You can get your credentials from your account by selecting the link in SUSE Studio, which will direct you to the correct page on Amazon's website. Here you can see your access key and select Show to see your secret access key. You just cut and paste those keys into the form on the SUSE Studio page. Select your default region and then save your changes. Now you are ready to upload Amazon EC2 appliances. So for example, I can take my Apache web server, I can select its version, I can select the instance type that I want, what region I want it to deploy to, and I can upload that appliance to my Amazon EC2 account. Thank you for watching this demonstration of SUSE Studio 1.2. We hope this demonstration will help you effectively create and deploy your SUSE Linux Enterprise appliances either in-house or to the Amazon cloud.